On the 6th of October 2021, the true crime world was rocked at its core by the news that a team of investigators had allegedly solved the decades-long mystery of the identity of the Zodiac Killer. As more and more social media posts and evidence began to circulate, conspiracies began to take over the news, especially theories relating to the actual timing of the articles, as well as the sources of the articles. For this video, I'll be detailing a little history from the Zodiac case, exploring previous favourites for suspects of the murders, as well as how a team of volunteer investigators with backgrounds in criminology came to suspect Gary Francis Poste. After that, I'll explore some of the conspiracy surrounding the accrediting of Gary F. Poste as the killer. What's up guys, it's Freaky Informer, and just like I already said, today I'm giving a brief history of the Zodiac Killer. Normally I don't cover well-known killers, but with the recent news I couldn't help but do a little research into the case. As always, if you enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing so I can make these videos more often. Don't forget to comment down below your thoughts after the video. Let's get into it. From 1968 to 1969, Northern California residents were sleeping with one eye open. A killer was stalking the streets in no fixed location and killing indiscriminately. 5 murder victims were confirmed by the Francisco Bay Area Police. 2 of 7 possible victims would survive the Zodiac's attacks. These victims were 2 young couples who were killed on lovers' lanes, as well as 1 taxi driver who was randomly targeted. The first couple, David Arthur Faraday, 17, and Betty Lou Jensen, 16, were shot and killed by the Zodiac on December 20th, 1968, just 5 days before Christmas. They were discovered on Lake Herman Road at 11 p.m, less than an hour after the murders occurred. The second couple, Michael Renault Magot and Darlene Elizabeth Ferrin, who were 19 and 22 respectively, were attacked in a parking lot in Vallejo, California. The attack occurred on the 4th of July in 1969. Both of the lovers were shot, and they were taken to the Kaiser Foundation Hospital not long after. While Magot survived his gunshot, Ferrin would not be so lucky. She was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. She would be the infamous Zodiac's 3rd murder victim. While the first 2 couples were attacked with a gun, the Zodiac quickly evolved to be more personal in his method of killing. This time he would use a knife on his victims. 20-year-old Brian Calvin Hartnell and his partner, 22-year-old Cecilia Ann Shepard, would become victims to the Zodiac Killer on the 27th of September 1969. This attack took place in Napa County. Hartnell would survive the 8 stab wounds left in his back by the killer, while Shepard died as a result of her injuries. Shepard suffered for 2 days from the attack before her death on the 29th of September in that same year. However, the Zodiac's 5th confirmed murder victim would prove that the killer did not only target couples. Ever the opportunist, he took the life of 29-year-old Paul Lee Stein. The murder occurred on the 11th of October of 1969. The Zodiac decided to choose tradition over intimacy and murdered Stein with a gun rather than a knife, as with the 3rd set of victims. So while we have 7 confirmed victims, 5 of which were murdered, the real interest in and magnitude of the case would come from the killer's infamous ciphers, as well as his claims to have murdered 37 people. However, as time and interest garnered in the case, other violent incidents would eventually be attributed to the Zodiac. Though this would be the end of the killings, at least the ones proven to be done by the Zodiac, August 1st of 1969 would prove to cement the killer's place in popular culture. It was on this day that the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner received identical letters. As you may have guessed, these were the original Zodiac letters. Within this first set of letters, the Zodiac took credit for the shootings at Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs. Each letter contained 1/3 of a complete cipher, the infamous 408 cipher. The killer demanded that the letters be printed on the front page of each newspaper, or else he would drive around and murder random individuals over the course of the weekend. His target number of victims for this weekend was 12. Psychiatrists would describe the letters as being written by someone you would expect to be brooding and isolated. Of course, it is this puzzle of a cipher which would stamp the Zodiac's name on true crime lovers' lips for the next 50 years. The Chronicle published its 1/3 of the cipher, but instead of taking the front page, it was plastered on page 4. Alongside the encrypted message was a note from Vallejo Police Chief Jackie Stilts. This note stated that the police were not satisfied that the letter was written by the murderer and requested that he send a second letter with details only the murderer would know in order to prove the letter writer's identity. The killer did not go on with his promise to shoot random bystanders, and all 3 parts of the cipher would be published. A week later, the cipher would be solved, but one day before that, the San Francisco Examiner received the iconic Dear Editor letter. It's this letter that gave the Zodiac his name, and it provided all of the gory details which Police Chief Stoltz had asked for. The letter read as follows.
Dear Editor, this is the Zodiac speaking. In answer to your asking for more details about the good times I have had in Vallejo, I shall be very happy to supply even more material. By the way, are the police having a good time with the code? If not, tell them to cheer up. When they do crack it, they will have me. On the 4th of July, I did not open the car door. The window was rolled down already. The boy was originally sitting in the front seat when I began firing. When I fired the first shot at his head, he leaped backwards at the same time, thus spoiling my aim. He ended up on the back seat, then the floor in back, thrashing out very violently with his legs. That's how I shot him in the knee. I did not leave the scene of the killing with squealing tires plus racing engine as described in the Vallejo paper. I drove away quite slowly, so as not to draw attention to my car. The man who told police that my car was brown was about 40 to 45, rather shabbily dressed. I was in this phone booth having some fun with the Vallejo cop when he was walking by. When I hung the phone up, the damn thing began to ring, and that drew his attention to me and my car. Last Christmas. In that episode, the police were wondering how I could shoot and hit my victims in the dark. They did not openly state this, but implied this by saying it was a well-lit night, and I could see silhouettes on the horizon. Bullshit. That area is surrounded by high hills and trees. What I did was tape a small pencil flashlight to the barrel of my gun. If you notice, in the center of the beam of light, and if you aim it at a wall or ceiling, you will see a black or dark spot in the center of the circle of light, about 3 to 6 inches across. When taped to a gun barrel, the bullet will strike in the center of the black dot in the light. All I had to do was spray them as if it were a water hose. There was no need to use the gun sights. I was not happy to see that I did not get front page coverage.
The day after this letter was published, there was even more news about the Zodiac case on everyone's lips. Donald and Betty Hardin claimed to have solved the 408 character cipher. The day was August 9th, 1969, and the Zodiac was about to make national news with his ramblings within the cipher, despite the nonsense code of 18 characters which have been deemed to hold no information. Despite this, the killer's crazed thoughts are clear in the coded message.
I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all the lone or stray people I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife.
Of course, with this level of infamy, many investigators and authors task themselves with researching the case of the Zodiac Killer. As these writers were conducting their research, they were able to attribute some other crimes to the Zodiac which seemed to match the killer's MO. None of these have been officially attributed to the murderer, but they each have a valid reasoning due to similarities between the confirmed and unconfirmed killings. 5 years prior to the Zodiac's first confirmed attack, 17-year-old Linda Faye Edwards and 18-year-old Robert George Domingos were shot and killed on a beach near Gaviota. The scene very much matched the Zodiac's Lake Berryessa killing in 1968. Another killing unofficially linked to the Zodiac was Cherry Jo Bates' murder on October 30th of 1966 in Riverside. The 18-year-old was stabbed so brutally that her head was nearly cleaved from her body. The only connection between that killing and the Zodiac was an anonymous tip received by Paul Avery which pointed out the similarities in stabbings and circumstances around Bates's death and the murder committed by the Zodiac in September of 1969. Donna Ann Lass was 25 at the time of her disappearance on September 6th of 1970. She was last seen in Nevada and no evidence has ever pointed to where she disappeared to. No evidence has been linked to the Zodiac either, but circumstances led to the popular belief that she is another victim of his. Finally, the attempted kidnapping of 22-year-old Kathleen Johns was unofficially linked to the Zodiac due to her description of her attacker. When Johns gave her statement to the sergeant on duty after escaping the kidnapper, she noticed the police composite sketch of Paul Stine's killer and recognized him as the man who had abducted her and her child. This killer, of course, was the Zodiac. It can be assumed that this link was never officially made by police, as witness testimony is often unreliable as trauma and other factors can affect memory. Further communications would be made by the Zodiac, but this would stop on January 29, 1974. The letter would praise The Exorcist as the best satirical comedy that he had ever seen. Aside from this lighthearted review of the movie, the killer left a scoring system at the bottom with 37 given to the Zodiac and 0 points to the San Francisco Police Department. Perhaps the murderer was sick of getting away with murder, or perhaps he moved away. Regardless, the title of Zodiac was popularly speculated to belong to Arthur Leigh Allen, who was an official suspect in the case due to his previous record and some circumstantial evidence. Allen was interviewed by police several times in the early days of the Zodiac investigations. He was also the subject of several search warrants over a 20-year period, as stated in Robert Graysmith's book, Zodiac. The book was initially published in 1986, however newer editions add detail to the timeline as the case has progressed. In fact, in a 2007 revision of the biography, the author noted that several police detectives had remarked off the record that Allen was in fact the most likely suspect. Furthermore, Dave Toschi, who was a lead investigator in this case at the time, is quoted to have said that all evidence against Arthur Leigh Allen turned out to be negative. However, Toschi's daughter would say in 2018 that her father was convinced that Allen was the Zodiac. They simply didn't have the evidence to prove or prosecute him. The investigator even told Mark Ruffalo, who portrayed him in the 2007 film Zodiac, that as soon as that guy walked in the door, I knew it was him. One of the first interviews between detectives and Arthur Leigh Allen occurred on October 6th of 1969. Witnesses had placed Allen at the original crime scene at Lake Berryessa on September 27th of that same year, the day in which Harnell and Shepard had been attacked. Allen claimed that he had in fact been scuba diving on that day. Even the man's close friend, Donald Cheney, was suspicious of Allen. In 1971, Cheney reported the supposed Zodiac to police for several odd instances. Apparently, he had spoken of a desire to kill using the alias the Zodiac, as well as the fact that he had a gun in his possession which he was a bit too excited to swing around. This supposed conversation and set of events happened no later than January 1st of 1969. Furthermore, Arthur Leigh Allen had received a dishonorable discharge from the US Navy in 1958. He had served for 2 years, but no reason was listed in any of the documents I've looked through. The year before the murder spree began, Allen was fired from his job as a primary or elementary school teacher due to the fact that there were allegations of sexual misconduct with students. Some of the people around him would describe him as fixated on young children and angry at women. In September of 1972, San Francisco police obtained a search warrant for Allen's residence but found nothing of significance. In 1974, Allen was arrested for sexually assaulting a 12-year-old boy. He pleaded guilty of the crime and subsequently served 2 years imprisonment. Even this previous history of criminal behaviour isn't the end of circumstantial evidence tying Arthur Leigh Allen to the Zodiac slayings. While the composite sketch didn't quite match up with his physical appearance and his handwriting didn't quite match the Zodiac letters, some arguments can be made about this evidence. The former can be excused by how unreliable eyewitness testimony is, but the latter is a little bit more complicated. Arthur Leigh Allen is known to have been ambidextrous. Essentially, he could write with both hands, although his right hand was slightly weaker in its use. It's widely believed that only his dominant hand was tested, but both hands and their writings were tested, and handwriting experts didn't match Allen's writing to the Zodiac's. Of course, he may have changed his writing for the writing of the letters, however, the misspellings in the letters would not make sense for a man of Allen's education level. Perhaps the writing and spelling mistakes were an effort to throw off the police. Or perhaps Allen wasn't actually the Zodiac. Despite these main pieces of evidence, a substantial amount of coincidences kept him at the top of the suspects list for quite some time. In 1967, Arthur Lee Allen's mother gifted him a watch which had the infamous crosshair symbol. The watch brand was Zodiac. Another strange coincidence was his navy uniform, of which the boots matched the print found at the scene of the Lake Berryessa attack. While his actual shoe may not have been linked, the style and size of the 10.5 size military boots matched his shoe size, and the fact that he did in fact serve in the military, wherein the boots were standard issue. Allen also confessed to the police that on the day of the attack he had a set of knives which were caked in blood. The knives were never tested, but Allen claimed that these knives were used to kill a chicken. The suspect also owned a royal typewriter which was extremely similar to the one used by the Zodiac to create a confession letter about the unsolved stabbing of Cherry Jo Bates. A survivor of the attack, Michael Mago, identified Allen as Bates' murderer but would not stand up in court as the photographic lineup more than 2 decades later was inherently flawed. Possibly due to the fact that the mind replaces memories even an hour after events. Ironically, Allen happily told police that his favourite book was The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Cannell. This book is about a general in the army who is bored of hunting animals and instead chooses to hunt humans. Wording in the infamous 408 cipher heavily coincides with sentences from the story, such as, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest." In the November 9th, 1969 bus bomb letter, the Zodiac stated that another part of the letter included the line,
"What you do not know is whether the death machine is at the site, or whether it is being stored in my basement for future use. Take 1 bag of ammonium nitrate fertilizer, 1 gallon of stove oil, and dump a few bags of gravel on top. Then set the shit off. It will positively ventilate anything that should be in the way of the blast."
When police raided Arthur Lee Allen's home, they found those exact ingredients in the man's basement. Among those ingredients were bomb-making diagrams as well as plenty of other incriminating evidence. Because the Zodiac had threatened to bomb people, Allen was brought in for an interview. He claimed that the bomb-making ingredients and diagrams were left there by a third party but neglected to mention who. Because nothing could be proven with this circumstantial evidence, no charges were filed against Allen. In one of Arthur Lee Allen's final interviews, however, he denounced the possibility of him being the Zodiac.
"They took a lot of my tapes, samples of my handwriting, and screwed up a lot of my stuff here too. But they didn't take that. They took a couple of typewriters. I know who the guy was," referring to Spinelli. "I never said a word to him. I didn't like the punk, and I said this guy must be on the hot seat for something. And they said, the police, oh no, he just phoned down and volunteered this information. When I found out the next day by a different police officer that, yes, he sure had, he was trying to plea bargain his 30-year rap on multiple armed robberies. I couldn't murder anyone. It's difficult as hell, and it can be terribly depressing. And if I deserved any of it, that would be something different. But I don't. There are 2 types of liars in the world, fishermen and policemen, and not necessarily in that order. And their function is lying to you as to trip you up. They can't do it to me because I have nothing to trip over. I am not the Zodiac Killer. I know that. I know that deep in my soul. I've never been known for good luck, and I guess this is pretty much living proof of it. I couldn't murder anyone.
He died not too much long after this, and around this time is when the Zodiac's last known correspondence took place. Even with Allen's profession of innocence, this corresponding end of timelines added more evidence in some people's eyes that Allen was the Zodiac. That pretty much brings us up to date with the case. Here's where we get into the recent developments in the Zodiac case. While law enforcement aren't officially considering that Gary Francis Poste is a suspect, a team of 40 volunteers have claimed that the man is a very strong suspect. It should be noted that these case breakers have held professional roles in areas such as law enforcement, military service, and academic and legal employment. This news was first disclosed on October 7, 2021. The casebreakers are known to have had some success in the past and have even claimed to solve the D.B. Cooper case earlier this year. That update features in my third Unsolved Mysteries That Are Actually Solved video, and you can catch that in the tag on the top right. Police may not agree with the casebreakers' conviction of Gary F. Poste being the Zodiac Killer, however they do accept the possibility that the man is tied to another murder, the 1966 stabbing of Cherry Jo Bates. The only issue with this connection is that it is also often accredited to the Zodiac, meaning Poste and Zodiac could absolutely be one and the same. Both cases currently remain open. So, what evidence points to Poste being the killer? Although the team haven't fully revealed everything just yet, they claim to have spent years digging through forensic evidence as well as investigating his darkroom. According to the volunteer investigators, a picture of Poste which was found in the darkroom shows scarring on his forehead which perfectly matched with the scars seen on the Zodiac in the composite sketch of the killer. The only other piece of evidence that the casebreakers have revealed publicly is one of the curious features of the Zodiac ciphers. Jen Buchholz, a former Army counterintelligence officer, told Fox News in an interview that if you removed Poste's full name from one of the ciphers, an entirely new message appears in the code. You've got to know Gary's full name in order to decipher these anagrams, she said, before adding, I just don't think there's any way anybody would have figured it out. She is essentially saying that if you did not know the Zodiac Killer's full name, you would not be able to solve the cipher to get the other message that appears within it. The casebreakers haven't shared much else with the public just yet, however. Those close to Poste have no difficulty in believing that the man was the notorious Zodiac, however. A woman known only as Gwen came forward to testify that she had grown up as his neighbour, saying that he often babysat her in her youth. Poste allegedly taught her how to shoot a gun and to hide out in the woods. The woman also claimed that Poste's wife had called Poste a very bad man who used to beat her if she so much as made a dinner that he didn't enjoy. After the news came out, Gwen talked to Poste's widow, who allegedly said that Gary is a very bad man, and I am sorry I did not tell the cops about what he has done. Poste's other neighbour, Brian Pladzin, 68, told The Sun in an interview that he'd heard the rumours that Gary was revealed to be the Zodiac Killer. He was apparently a great neighbour, and Pladzin knew him for 20 years or so. However, rumours of him being the Zodiac allegedly came along before the casebreakers went public with their information. These rumours may have been fueled by Facebook posts made by Gary F. Poste's friend. Glyn Barnes shared many Facebook post updates in which there were pictures of the two together. The Facebook posts have since been taken down, but captions included, Mountain time with the old man, Gary Poste, please, what is a Zodiac? And, my last visit with old man, Gary Poste, Zodiac? It's entirely possible that these images are doctored, and it's also possible that these posts were made as an inside joke, referring to the rumours going around Poste's neighbourhood that detailed him as a killer. Now we get into the conspiracy portion of this announcement. The majority of the speculation over this case is the timing at which it came about. Exactly a day before the news of the alleged identity of the Zodiac being Gary F. Poste, news broke of a report done by a French commission which revealed the extent of abuse of children experienced at the hands of the Catholic Church. This report was 2.5 years in the making and investigated over 70 years worth of French church, court, press, and police files. The 2,500-page document details how an estimated 3,000 child abusers, 2/3 of them priests, worked in the Catholic Church in France over 7 decades. The estimated number of victims in this scandal is believed to be 330,000 if you include offences by lay members of the Church, such as teachers within Catholic schools. Of those 330,000, an estimated 216,000 were victims of French clergy. These numbers are considered to be conservative, as many victims did not trust the Commission with their stories or simply wanted to move on. This report could have been devastating to the Church, as it only detailed cases within France. Should this report have made international headlines, it is almost certain that the public would put pressure on the Church to right its wrongs, especially considering the fact that it was only in May of 2019 that the Pope wrote into law that Catholic priests and nuns should report sex abuse by members of the clergy, as well as attempts to cover it up by superiors to church authorities, but not to the police. The Church has previously been held accountable in many cases, most notably in Ireland, where it has paid out €6 million to victims of abusers within the Church in 2005. This number isn't even comparable to the $4 billion it has paid out to victims in the US. If every country were to seek justice for its victims, the church would lose all of its power as well as all of its income. It is entirely possible that some higher-up Catholics had previously agreed with major news companies and the case breakers that should such an event arise, certain news outlets would air the news. We already know that the case breakers have known this identity for some time, and if you look at which news outlets were first to share stories about the Zodiac's supposed identity, it's easy for many to believe that the sharing of the news is a conspiracy in itself. The first news outlets to share the identity of the Zodiac were Fox News and TMZ. Fox News is notoriously right-wing and religious, and TMZ is owned by Fox News. Fox News has been the target of many controversies in the past, and they also seem to have a bias for Christianity in their articles. In fact, in their short summary of the report by the commission responsible for investigating the child abuse by the church, they put an emphasis on it being the French Catholic Church, and they fail to condemn this behaviour and do not mention the church's past offences, as most of their reports have. Of course, this is just a conspiracy theory shared by very few people on social media. Don't you think it's curious, however, that this latest Catholic Church offence doesn't appear until the very end of the first page of results when you search up Catholic Church files? And it doesn't even appear on the first page when you search up Catholic Church report. And what of the timing of the big reveal of the Zodiac's identity? The news coverage since the report aired by Fox has been continuous, however no new update has any new information. Is Gary Francis Poste the true Zodiac? Maybe it's Ted Cruz. Or perhaps the police were right to suspect Arthur Lee Allen. What do you think? Is this a conspiracy, the truth, or something else entirely? Maybe we'll find out in the near future. That's it for today's video on the history of the Zodiac up until now, with a little focus on the conspiracy theory surrounding the reveal. Remember to let me know what you think in the comments, and check out AP's channel, which I've listed in the video description. Also, make sure you give the charity and petition in the description a little love. I'd also like to say a big thank you to Wendighosts on Twitter for my new icon. Check them out below. Join the Discord to keep up with all things Freaky Informer. Stay freaky, stay informed. It may save your life.